Thank you, Henry. Henry did trick me into starting small-scale seminars 15 years ago. So be careful of what you listen to from him, because all of his advice actually did work, 110% of it. And we were lucky enough to create Executive Next Practices Forums, which, as Henry mentioned, has grown to be a global entity engaging the C-suite. So I'm before you today, and I'm going to break a few rules here and talk about why CEOs buy and why they do not. And I should start by saying we're not really selling to the CEO. How many of you are actually selling to other parts of the C-suite, just to raise a hand, other than CEOs, right? So let me ask you this before we even start. I mean, what are your issues? And can you boil it down into one or two words about what issues you're having in selling to whoever you're selling to? Just a couple of words. Just raise your hand. They've heard it before. Credibility. Who is the actual decision maker? Great one. Budget? Yeah. What's the budget? Yes, sir. Listening to them. Great one. We're going to talk about that for sure. They're there to sell them a bill of goods, right? Selling a real thing. One more. Yeah, they're distracted, right? They just got off their phone. They're looking at what else is blowing up in the world right now, which blew up at lunch, as you know. All right, so here's what we want to do. Again, I told you I'm going to break a few rules. In front of you, I gave you a cheat sheet, a handout. Now, that's not for you, that's for me, because in my older age, I find I have to write things down a lot. So I want to walk you through this, but stop me anywhere you have a question about one of these, because we've got a short period of time. I'm going to try to get through all this as quickly as I can. So let's start with what we always gravitate to, which is the negative. Look at the bottom of the page. Why are we not selling to the CEO or whoever we're trying to sell to? Number one, features and benefits. Henry mentioned we have a lot of people come through, vendors and others, trying to pitch something at these forums. And at UCI, we have something like 300 startups trying to pitch their ideas. Most fail. Over 90% of them fail because they start their pitches with, here's my feature, here are the benefits, here's why you should engage me, as opposed to what? As opposed to what? How am I going to solve your problem? Exactly. So this is the biggest downfall we see, is someone so eager to get across their feature and benefits that they're not listening. Henry and I have a good friend, a CEO. His name is Mark. I'll use the name Mark. That's actually his name. He will get into a meeting. We'll bring up a vendor to him. And we have 30 minutes for that vendor to sell to Mark. Mark will smell features and benefits if someone's trying to pitch him on that, and he will talk for 28 of the 30 minutes, and he'll out-talk the vendor and give them about 30 seconds at the end to say, okay, what you got? They smell you coming when you're trying to pitch first. So that's number one. Don't rely on features and benefits. We're really going to sell sizzle in many cases versus the steak. Think about how many steakhouses are out there. What makes them different? It's the sizzle. So we got to think about what is going to make us uniquely different. Number two, and some of you have already said this or alluded to it, and this is the biggest downfall we always see, is stop talking. Stop talking. When you're coming up to someone for the first time, particularly if it's a prospect or someone you think you may want to engage with, just listen. A couple of you have already said it. We want to start the conversation by listening to what they have to say. Just like I started this presentation wanting to know what your pain points are. Listening is the toughest thing to do, I know, but it's the 80-20 rule all over again. 80% of us listening, 20% of the prospect talking. I can't reiterate that enough. That's the number one downfall we see that's a negative. Just skipping around here, off-brand message. Off-brand message. Facebook is the same as LinkedIn, as much as some people would like to think of as different. Oh, Facebook is for my friends and LinkedIn is for business. Prospects don't see it that way. I had a situation recently where a prospect came to me and wanted a speaker on leadership, and they wanted a particular type of leadership, and I recommended someone. Much to my chagrin, the prospect looked at that speaker's Facebook page, and on the Facebook page was some things he didn't like, both politically and otherwise. Doesn't matter. It didn't fit the brand message that the speaker was trying to portray. So be careful about that. It doesn't mean you don't stop posting on Facebook and be real, But at the same time, just be aware people are watching. They do look at that, and if you're off brand, that's going to be a signal. Also, I got to say, quite frankly, if you're spending that much time on Facebook, the prospect's probably not going to take you very seriously if he sees that you're spending all day on Facebook. And by the way, for those Gen Zers in the audience, Facebook is a social media app that. Okay. All right, chemistry. Chemistry is the one that, again, really trips us off because we don't know. We can't really feel it. But you get that sense after the call and after the no that it didn't work. So how do you deal with chemistry? That's a tough one. The best way I know to do it is really research the person extremely well, get to know their background, get to know their preferences, get to know them as a person first, and try to reach in with some of that unique knowledge as you're meeting with them for the first or second time. That's going to be critical. So know your prospect well, know them from a personal standpoint as well as a business standpoint. Other than that, I don't have a lot of advice to you. If there's not a chemistry between you and the prospect, it's not going to be there. Mark, we've seen that time and again. You can't create chemistry. It's either going to work or it's not. However, there is a situation where you can try and try again. Don't take no for the first answer. I've had a lot of success with going back after someone we had poor chemistry with early on. Keep trying it. Just wait around and it'll come back around. All right, quickly. I'm going to get into one or two positives. Actually, I'm just going to focus on one here. And that is referrals. I'm sure most of you are using referrals. Raise your hand if you're relying on referrals. That's good that you're doing that. Depending on the research that you look at, between 75 and 80% of closed sales come from a warm referral. Some research tells us as much as 90% of closed sales comes from referrals. So why are we doing anything else? Why aren't we right now reaching out to our network and saying, here's what I'm doing, can you help me out? And by the way, people will respond extremely favorably if you do it that way. I need your help. Can you help me? And in turn, return the favor to them. This is the number one thing you want to look at, is the referral source. We've gone into some markets recently where you have a contractor network. People don't look at the web for contractors, they look at referrals, correct? So again, think about that. How are you going to work your referral network? How are you going to do a terrific and robust network to the table? All right, one more. And then raise a hand if you have one more question on any of these. The final one, and this is where we started with. Alleviate the pain. Asking them first, what is the issue? What's the situation that they're experiencing? Let them talk. And by the way, remember, whatever they tell you at first may not be the issue. I've got a sales problem, I've got a marketing problem, I've got a people problem. That may not actually be the issue, but let them talk. You can start to assess from there and dive deeper in what they may or may not need. This is so critical that you do this right up front, so it helps with your diagnosis and comes back to you and helps you craft a more concise sale. Now, what I've just given you, I realize, is Sales 101, but for all of us, no matter how long we've been at this, it's necessary to continue to go back to it and reiterate it. And think about this before you walk in, before you have that conversation with the person, whether you're at the conference, whether you're at a conference like this, whether you come to one of our forums, whether you've actually got a sales call. Think carefully through what your strategy is going to be as you walk in. And the final thing is you're going to use the technique of ABL. Remember Glenn Ross? Always be closing, ABC. Except this time, it's always be listening. Always be listening. With that, I wish you good luck. Look forward to meeting with you in the future.